It's on the ground there, actually. I should really, get back to it. Of course. Go ahead. Oh, and Kate. It's on the ground there, actually. I should really, get back to it. Of course.
Hello, Nathan? Sorry to keep you waiting, my editor. Where were we?
Hey, you were asking
Hello,
about the guy,
Nathan?
the one that went back
Sorry to
there.
keep you waiting, my editor. Where were we?
Hey, you were asking about the guy, the one that went back
Sorry to
there.
keep you waiting, my editor. Where were we? Ah, that's right. And did you know him well?
No, not really. He worked maintenance on our trucks.
He was employed by IDAP.
No, no, nothing like that. I mean, he just helped us out a few times, off the book stuff. Guy was a local mechanic, family business type thing.
I see.
I remember he had a place on the edge of town, not far from our setup. We'd chat from time to time. He's a nice guy, friendly.
And do you know where he was going that day?
To the church.
He was going to church.
No, no, don't get me wrong. I mean, that place had been abandoned for almost a year, but he was looking for his brother.
At the church?
Yeah, there'd been reports of, you know, pretty brutal fight. He'd heard his brother might have been caught up in it.
Sure, but. And I'm not quite clear on this. Was his brother still alive?
Honestly, I don't know. I don't think he knew either. Seems like he was on his way to find out.
So, his brother. He was in the army.
Yes and no. It's complicated. You gotta remember it was pretty chaotic back then.
Of course. Okay, let's back up.
Yes and no. Sure.
What complicated the situation?
Just the history of it all. His brother had been a recruit in the Altus Armed Forces, boot camp, basic training. Well, this is back when NATO was still keeping the peace. But after U.S. forces pulled out, apparently he deserted.
Do you know why?
No, just, I know they argued a lot about it.
Was he upset that his brother had deserted?
Oh, no, he was no fan of the government. I mean, by that time, very few people were.
What then?
I think he was just, I don't know, sick of all the violence. Didn't want to see his brother get caught up in all that.
In what?
More bloodshed.
Hello, Kate speaking.
Hey, sorry about that. Call must have dropped. The network out here is garbage.
No problem. It's understandable. Are you still driving?
Yeah, we're not at the town yet. Hold on a sec. Andy, we almost there.
We're, a little ways out. Oh, and we need to make one quick stop, too.
Thanks, bud. So, where'd we get cut off?
You were telling me about the church. The landmine? The accident.
Right, yeah. Well, of course, a civilian casualty like that, particularly, at a church, I guess it kind of refocused our attention here.
Had IDAP been particularly active in the area?
Yeah. I mean, our project had a handful of camps spread across the country. But yeah, I was in the town itself for a few months. It's all different now, though.
How so?
Well, for one thing, IDAP used to be based right in the heart of Rio Castro. Of course, this was all pre-war. I remember, at that time, the local military maintained a checkpoint on the outskirts of town. That was understandable. I mean, the whole area was a kind of Wild West. Big mashup of civilian and guerrilla infrastructure. Disaster waiting to happen, really. I don't know. It's strange to see our camp based there now.
Hey, sorry about the holdup. We're on the way now.
All right, thanks, Andy.
So, what's your role there today?
Now, in general, the provision of aid. There was a lot of damage. IDAP fills the gap. Drinking water, basic medicine, post-war cleanup, in other words.
And on the ground, how does that translate to your work?
It's a mixed bag, like today. Part demining, part unexploded ordnance disposal.
I see.
Heads up, Mac. Almost there.
Got it. I'm sorry about that. We're arriving now. Give me a sec.
All right, Mac. That's your stuff all laid out here.
Hold on just a sec, Kate. I need to get set up.
Take your time.
All right, then. You got everything? Detector working? You, remember how to switch it on, right?
Yeah, I got it, Andy.
Then you're all set.
Thanks. So, for now, I'll just make a note of where the mines are.
Yeah. Take it slow, Mac. We'll let the Bobcat do the heavy lifting later.
Hey, sorry, I forgot to mention, the demining toolkit, totally forgot to pack it up this morning.
That's no big deal. We're just locating the mines for now. Just keep me posted.
Apologies again, it's en route. I'll let you know when it arrives from dispatch.
Are you free to talk, Nathan?
Sure. For now, I'm just sweeping the road for mines, getting a lay of the land, you know. The detector lets us see what we're dealing with here. I can work and chat.
Oh, you're sure? That would be a great help.
Deadlines, huh?
Exactly.
I'll stop you if I need to concentrate, or, you know.
Totally. No, of course. I'll stay on the line. You set the pace. Question. What happens when you do find a landmine?
Ordinarily, we disarm it, but today, small oversight, we haven't got all our gear right now.
Oh, it's on the way, I hope.
Yes.
All right, Mac. That's your stuff all laid out here.
Hold on just a sec, Kate. I need to get set up.
Take your time.
All right, then. You got everything? Detector working? You, remember how to switch it on, right?
Yeah, I got it, Andy.
Then you're all set.
Thanks. So for now, I'll just make a note of where the mines are.
Yeah. Take it slow, Mac. We'll let the Bobcat do the heavy lifting later.
Hey, sorry, I forgot to mention, the demining toolkit, totally forgot to pack it up this morning.
That's no big deal. We're just locating the mines for now. Just keep me posted.
Apologies again, it's en route. I'll let you know when it arrives from dispatch.
Question. What happens when you do find a landmine?
Ordinarily, we disarm it, but today, small oversight, we haven't got all our gear right now.
Oh, it's on the way, I hope.
Yeah, it's all good. So long as there aren't any AT mines on the road, we can even deal with this mechanically.
Mechanically?
Mm-hmm. NATO has a Bobcat, armored vehicle, which we can use. It'll roll over the smaller mines, detonate them. Safer and easier than doing it by hand. Basically, picture a tank with a plow stuck on the end, and, well, you won't be far off.
So, since the war's now over, has your own role changed at all?
Yeah, I guess so. Now I'm almost entirely focused on EOD and UXO.
And that's something you did in the military too?
Yeah, that's the thing about mines. War or not, win, lose, they don't go away.
How many minefields are you facing on Altis?
That we know of, 22. 23 including whatever's here. Plus you've got Stratus, another 4 over there, I think.
I see. And can you estimate, roughly, how long it would take to remove them all?
A lot of variables. Operation of this size, if it's only IDAP, we're talking years.
Do you ever get nervous?
Yeah, but not when I'm working. It hits you after. Or before.
Do you ever get nervous?
Yeah, but not when I'm working. It hits you after. Or before. Andy, I'm at the barricade.
Cool. And the road?
Yeah, it's what we thought. Dozen or so APs, nothing the old Bobcat can't handle.
What do you hope to achieve in the town? What's your end goal?
You know, poke around, get rid of all the bad stuff, ERW, explosive remnants of war. In Oreo Castro, that'll be landmines and some leftover ordnance.
How well do you remember the town?
You mean before it was destroyed? Vividly. The church, where the mines are, it's sealed off now.
By IDAP?
No, NATO. They lost some guys there in the firefight. One of their EODs is helping clear the place. But, he's not exactly... Hey, Andy.
Yep. What's up?
What's the deal with the church? Can we get in or what?
Sorry, Mac. No dice. NATO's got first dibs. They're bringing their boys home. Bag and tag. Best leave them to it.
Come back later. Huh. Where our camp used to be.
Anything left?
Not much. Few memories, maybe. Just some old boxes here and there.
IDAPs?
Yeah. It was NATO that helped bring them in. Actually, it was one hell of a supply drop.
So, the supply drop, this was when exactly?
Right around the time we saw the ceasefire starting to break down. Must be more than a year ago now.
So, at that time, your camp was in the center of town?
Yeah, things were getting pretty desperate, though. I remember we hadn't been resupplied in months. No food, water, medicine. We were used to issues with logistics, but I don't know. In the end, it got so bad U.S. forces prepared an airdrop. Not an easy task, considering, but those crates, they really were life and death. That's why we needed somebody on the ground. Someone to make sure they came down okay.
And who was that?
A guy named Adams, part of the NATO peacekeeping force. Close friend of mine, actually.
Adams? He went out alone?
From the way he told it, he may as well have. No, he went along with some new recruits, local bunch. It was his job to show them the ropes.
Something I'm not quite clear on. Why didn't IDAP transport the aid themselves? There must have been a reason.
Yeah, there was. A couple of weeks previously, guerrillas had ambushed a convoy. It was some dissident group out to sabotage the peace talks in Kervala. Anyway, NATO intervened and the whole thing just blew up. A checkpoint was hit. Protesters were fired upon at the MOD.
Yes, we were there. AAN.
And you know how bad it got.
Our movements were limited by the government.
Exactly. And convincing anybody to reassign troops, to escort NGOs, just a total non-starter. One of the drop zones available to Adams was out on the coast. Once he'd called in the airdrop, that was it. They just had to sit tight, hope for the best.
One thing I don't understand, what were they doing there, all the way up in the mountains?
The town, Oreo Castro, this place has historic ties with the guerrillas. For years, people here would provide them with food, water.
I see.
The government responded by draining the swamp.
And that involved sending soldiers?
Yeah, coin ops. Adams and his guys were there to remind them of their R2P.
Just a sec, I'm getting a bit lost in the lingo here.
Oh, gotcha. R2P is their responsibility to protect. Counterinsurgency can get real messy real quick. He was in charge of training, laws of armed conflict, that kind of thing. Adams normally tossed out an orange smoke grenade, which marked his position for the pilot.
Unknown
So,
contact.
these
300
crates,
meters
were there a lot of them, or...?
No, just 4. One contained medicine, another fresh drinking water. The rest were packed with rice or grain. Adams had to inspect each one individually. Later, we'd arrange collection.
There's an enemy! Parachute! 300 meters northwest!
Thankfully, the rice seemed okay. It wasn't uncommon for the sacks of grain to split on impact, but that time, we got lucky. He didn't lose a single one. The medical items, you can imagine how pleased we were to see those arrive.
So they landed safely?
Yeah, they were fine.
position.
As I recall, the bottles of purified water were fine. We'd been waiting on those for weeks. As for the crates, they still needed to be checked before anyone else arrived.
Dismount.
Copy.
Now, the thing with airdrops, they're not exactly subtle. Smoke, noise of the plane, those bright green parachutes, they're gonna get you noticed. And when you're in the middle of bandit country, that's a problem.
Gekas. Sit rep.
Thanks. He didn't.
So they...
Yeah. No. Smoke. And we. As for.
Disembark.
Copy.
Thanks. It wasn't. He didn't. The med.
So then,
Yeah. As for now the thing with airdrop. Now the thing with airdrops, they're not exactly subtle. Smoke. Now the thing with airdrops, they're not exactly subtle. Smoke, noise of the plane, those bright green parachutes, they're gonna get you noticed. And when you're in the middle of bandit country, that's a problem.
Engage that technical! Hold fire!
Ready to fire. Ready to fire.
Open up! Hold fire! Go! Stop!
Calling knock.
Do not fire! Return to formation!
Contact. Machine gunner. Real go. Target acquired.
We got a man down!
Contact tactical.
Now, the thing with airdrops, they're not exactly subtle. Smoke, noise of the plane, those bright green parachutes, they're gonna get you noticed. And when you're in the middle of bandit country, that's a problem.
Okay, let's go! Go on cover!
Machine gunner, 75 meters front.
Moving! Go!
Contact technical.
Soldier, 75 meters front.
Contact machine gunner. Target's down. Area clear.
Sniper, 200 meters front. I see movement. Man, 75 meters front.
The guerrillas attacked.
Yeah, from what I heard, it was pretty intense. I don't have the numbers, but maybe 6 or 7 were killed.
And what happened when the supplies had been secured?
Adams would fire a flare. We'd spot it from the town and dispatch a truck. Back at the camp, of course, we'd heard all the gunfire, but that flare, when we spotted it, I don't know, felt like finding a moment of hope or something.
Sure. I can only imagine. And thanks for sharing. It puts a human perspective on my work. Speaking of which, your friend, do you think he'd be willing to contribute further? Even, off the record. What with the topic of my article, having an expert, an instructor on the laws of war.
Look, I'm sorry. I know he'd help out however he could, but listen, he died on Stratus. Year and a bit later. Landmine.
Oh, gosh, I'm so sorry. I didn't...
No, I hadn't planned to just land that on you. Hey, hold on just a sec. Something's come up here.
Mac, heads up. Bobcat's on the move. Driver wouldn't wait.
That's fine, thanks, Andy. Hey, Kate, bear with me. It's gonna get a little noisy here. We gotta clear out some mines.
Take your time. Just let me know when you can talk.
Okay, road's safe now. Bring the van on up.
Will do. Also, Mac, the NATO guys, they've kicked in all the doors. You're free to search inside the buildings now.
Got it. At least I can get out of the fucking rain. I'll come find you in a bit.
Have fun reminiscing.
What a mess. Loose rubble everywhere.
You up at the armory, Mac? We need to make a note to sort that shit out. Probably a whole bunch of ordnance lying around.
I'll come back later.
The mechanic you've been telling me about, he and his brother, they'd always lived there.
In the town, you mean? Yeah, as far as I know. The family business, the garage, it kind of kept them rooted.
Where are you now?
Who, me? I'm exploring.
I can hear an echo.
Yeah, I'm in what used to be the mayor's place, actually. At least it was before the government forces took it over. Morning. You been in?
You kidding me? I ain't going in there, man. That shit's all yours.
Where are you now?
Who, me? I'm exploring.
I can hear an echo.
Yeah, I'm in what used to be the mayor's place, actually. At least it was before the...
Tell me more about Staff Sergeant Adams. You met him on a previous deployment. That must have been in Generous, right?
No, actually, this was after I'd left the military. Previous deployment with IDAP, Pakistan. It must have been, God, 15 years ago? I think. Feels like another lifetime. I got a leaflet here. The Army must have scattered thousands of these.
Propaganda.
Something like that. This one says, there's still time to surrender. Maybe a bad choice of words considering.
Time to surrender? What's the context here?
This was last year, September. These leaflets, they were dropped maybe a day before the fighting began. You see, the guerrillas there, they'd found themselves a new leader. Charismatic, ex-military. For him, this was no time to surrender. Far from it. In fact, he used that time to rally his people, encourage them to resist, build defenses. Meanwhile, the Army was setting up for a major offensive. The attack on Oreo Castro? It was no secret. Of course, after the leaflet drop, IDAP started to pull out of the town. So the little I do know, well, that brings us back to the brother. The one who disappeared. His name was Alexis. He'd volunteered to build a barricade. Town was his home, after all.
So, these leaflets, they were a warning to the town.
Yeah, they confirmed the offensive.
The government was concerned about civilian casualties.
Don't sound too surprised.
So, NATO's message, do you think it was getting through? I mean, according to the laws of armed conflict, that's the principle of precaution, right?
Sure, maybe. Or maybe they were just sick of all the extra paperwork. By that point, the guerrillas were short on vehicles, damaged, destroyed, or otherwise. They had to improvise.
If I understand it, you know about what happened through the brother. Alexis, was it? Did you meet him?
Not directly, but, it's a small town, right? People knew Alexis. After what happened here, I talked to the locals. Found out what I could. The rest of what I know is pieced together from the commission report itself.
Actually, that incident report, the evidence you submitted, that's partly why I asked for the interview. I want to gain a human perspective.
Well, that's understandable. I mean, for a humanitarian commission, those reports tend to be,
A little detached, yes.
IDAP's neutrality was one thing, but the situation they faced was quite another.
You mean to say even your own vehicles were commandeered?
Nothing like biting the hand that feeds you, huh?
Help me out with some context here. This barricade.
I mean, it was crude, right? A gap between two outcrops of rock, natural bottleneck. The guerrillas hoped to block the road by jamming it with vehicles. As for the vehicles in the barricade, the commission actually linked the plates to a number of locals. Of course, several were still missing after the incident, so the investigation made some assumptions.
At what point did things become unsafe in the center of town?
Well, I'm not sure it was ever completely safe. Even before things escalated, we were concerned about being accidentally targeted. And to be honest, it didn't matter where we moved. That always remained a concern.
So, just to clarify, in your email you said you served as a combat engineer, the Marine Corps?
That's right. South Zagoria, generous.
Then it's fair to say you're no stranger to the subject of my article, the laws of armed conflict.
I've seen a few things, heard stories. It's rarely been, clear-cut, right and wrong.
Oh, absolutely. That's why it's so important to gain your perspective. You've seen things from both sides. I mean, now as an NGO, too.
Sure, yeah.
These vehicles, I suppose all of them were taken without consent.
Well, yeah, given the circumstances. The owners couldn't exactly refuse.
Right, but that's the thing. Never mind theft being illegal. The laws of armed conflict prohibit such actions.
Hey, just a thought. You remember the earthquakes back then?
Yes, they were quite frequent. Were IDAP at all concerned about that?
Oh, yeah. Any kind of disaster relief on top of what we were dealing with, it would have just about finished us off completely. Sorry, I shouldn't laugh. Just, I was thinking, he even took a local priest's car. I remember I was talking to Father Georgiopoulos, and he was actually very good about the whole thing.
How so?
Something about rich men and camels.
Do you think Alexis, I don't know, thought twice about taking these vehicles?
Look, sure, these were his neighbors, but this was their home, and it was under attack. What would you do?
Just to be sure on the timeline here, had IDEP left before the offensive began?
Like I said, we were pulling out, but no, not completely. We moved our camp to the church. Temporary arrangement.
After Alexis built the barricade, what then? Did he stay inside the town?
No, that's where the story gets more complicated. The barricade itself was later chained up and set on fire by someone else. I don't know quite who. Alexis, he headed west to lay mines. Anti-tank mines were already in the ground. If there's no pull fuse, and so long as they've not been stacked, they aren't too hard to remove. But Alexis, although he didn't use anti-handling devices, he did create a hybrid minefield.
AT mines. Mixed with APs?
That's it, yeah. He put anti-personnel mines around the anti-tank ones, made clearance all that much harder.
These mines, how did they get hold of them?
They got them when the government's outposts fell into guerrilla hands. Bounding mines. The type that leaps up a meter into the air before exploding. Nasty stuff. Hell, nowadays they're even made with plastic casing to throw off older types of mine detector.
Lovely.
They got them when the government's outposts fell into guerrilla hands. Bounding mines. The type that leaps up a meter into the air before exploding. Nasty stuff. Hell, nowadays they're even made with plastic casing to throw off older types of mine detector.
Lovely.
Oh yeah, just do your...
And they're still there?
Mm-hmm. They're not for long. We're setting up our demining drones as we speak. You know, thinking about it, even if we had a record of where Alexis's mines were, it may not do much good.
No? I thought minefield maps were a key part of your work.
Most folks don't realize, but landmines, they don't stay put. Heavy rain, landslides, keeping a map current ain't so simple. And with all the earthquakes in this region, there's little chance they'd all be in the same place. I don't know. Maybe just gallows humor, but we've got an expression for that. Landmines have legs. Alexis proved to be quite the combat engineer. He placed the mines exactly as he'd been shown.
So, moving on, where did Alexis go next?
He took a quad bike up to the castle behind the town. They got them when the government's outposts fell into guerrilla hands. Bounding mines. The type that leaps up a meter into the air before exploding. Nasty stuff. Hell, nowadays they're even made with plastic casing to throw off older types of mine detector.
Lovely.
Oh yeah, just do yourself a...
And they're still there?
Mm-hmm. They're not for long. We're setting up our demining drones as we speak. You know, thinking about it, even if we had a record of where Alexis's mines were, it may not do much good.
No? I thought minefield maps were a key part of your work.
Most folks don't. Alexis proved to be quite the combat engineer. He placed the mines exactly as he'd been shown.
So, moving on, where did Alexis go next?
He took a quad bike up to the castle behind the town.
The castle? Why?
He was needed at the guerrillas' base camp.
Okay. His group were running things from up at the castle.
Mm-hmm. And I see what you're getting at. Yeah, Geneva Convention's cultural objects, I think.
The barricade. There wasn't any way around it then?
From the road? No, well, not unless you cut through the compound.
Maybe a technical question.
Go ahead.
In these situations, do those involved commonly record the locations of minefields?
That's a tough one. Take this situation, for example. I'm convinced Alexis would have made a record. It's his home, after all. But do we have access to that information? No. And that's the problem. Things, information, people, landmines, they get lost in the fog of war. But that's the thing about landmines. Lost or not, they stick around. They wait to be found.
Do you feel these preparations made a difference?
In the short term, I do, yeah. The barricade held. The government's tanks were knocked out on the road.
And in the long term?
I'd go on, but as you may have heard, it's getting kind of loud here.
By the sounds of it, you've got your hands full.
This'll only take a minute. Be right back.
Bet you wish we had one of those in Takistan, huh?
I gotta admit, that's 60 tons of getting shit done.
Oh, by the way, while you were busy chatting to, well, whoever that is that isn't your wife...
I told you, Andy, she's a journalist. Get to the point.
Yeah. Well, Anyway, I assembled the demining drones.
Both of them?
Well, yeah. They're by the van.
All right, got the terminal.
Cool. So just connect it to a drone and... yeah, take control.
You got it?
Looking good.
So, you're gonna want to use the auto hover mode. Switch it on whenever you need to stay in one place.
Auto hover, right.
I'll arm the explosives once you've reached the minefield. Heads up. Enabling charges. Okay, now, the bombs. You only got 4. Release one and it'll drop straight down. Simple physics. If you run out, fly over to the van. There's plenty spare.
Thanks.
Having fun there?
Making things go boom, you know it. These demining charges pack quite a punch. What's in them?
500 grams of Crovex water gel, baby.
I'm out.
Don't sweat it. Steer back on over to the van. I'll rearm you. Safety's on.
Understood.
There you are. Set it down where you started. Over by those white containers.
Question. How can I see if I've gotten all the mines?
Your drone's got a dedicated sensor. Get close enough, and it'll detect any nearby explosives.
Gonna need another resupply.
No problem, Mac. Same deal.
All right, almost done. What the fuck was that?
Relax, relax. It sounds like it came from the other side of town. You want me to take a look?
No, stay put, I'll go.
Loose masonry, maybe? Just happened to disturb a landmine or something?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, collapsed building, UXO, I bet. Skittish things at the best of times.
Disturbed by your demining activity?
Could be. That's what makes them so damn dangerous. You never know if they're gonna stay unexploded. Hello? How'd you get here?
Another find?
Mm-hmm. Laser designator. Kind of thing special forces would use to call in an airstrike.
Oh? Interesting. Actually, the airstrike on the town, the details of that are fuzzy. Do you happen to remember it well? The airstrike, I mean.
Yeah. October 13th. Cluster bomb. Town was shook up pretty bad. The army just wasn't able to capture the place. And Colonel Arcanteros, he did not tolerate failure. So he asked foreign powers to intervene. Come in, break the guerrillas' resolve.
Right. And the evidence in the commission report, doesn't it point to CSAT?
Yeah. But truth can be the first casualty of war.
Sure, but didn't somebody witness them in action?
From a distance, yeah. Though he wasn't exactly what you'd call reliable. Guy was a goat herd. barely spoke any English.
That was not in the report I read.
It never is. Still, he did say they came down by parachute, and that at least was corroborated by multiple sources.
درگیری! سلاح ایستا 600 متر سمت 285.
These operatives, then? They moved in on the castle?
Yep. Must have been a fire team at least.
The man...
Not
Okay.
They were official.
And...
درگیری! افسر! 75 متر! جلوتر!
The guerrillas were taken out one by one.
درگیری! سرباز!
When things kicked off, there was a short burst of panicked radio chatter.
درگیری! مسلسلچی!
Shots fired.
درگیری! تیرانداز!
آماده شلیکم.
سلاح‌ها آزاد!
درگیری! تیرانداز.
درگیری! مرد!
درگیری! افسر. هدف انجام گرفت.
Then, silence. If we're to believe the goat herd, they then set up a position on the battlements. Moved to a vantage point on the castle's outer wall.
Okay, according to my notes, several targets were identified from afar, presumably by these special forces at the castle. Once they had a handle on what was what, they called it in. A jet approached from the east and dropped a single bomb. The positions in the town were then destroyed, but the church and IDAP's camps were left untouched. Does that match up with events as they were given to you?
Yeah, though to manage a guided strike like that, they must have had thermal imaging.
حرکت میبینم. مرد 600 متر سمت 210. چیزی میبینم. مسلسلچی 600 متر سمت 210.
Do you know why the government signed off on such a heavy-handed response? A cluster bomb? That's rather indiscriminate, even if it was laser-guided.
Sure, I mean, with a designator, you just switch it on, aim it at, well, whatever. The idea is that you remain in place, keep the laser on target. But even if it's done perfectly, a lot of uncontrolled variables. One of our doctors was out on the front line with medical supplies.
Wait, he wasn't at the church?
No, he was out in the open. By all accounts, the town just seemed to explode. Buildings were burning for days.
And this spotter, he just disappeared?
Yeah, last seen leaving the castle, heading west.
Let's talk about IDAP's doctor. You said he was on his way to the church. Did he make it there?
No. He lost his life. Killed trying to save others. I consider the gorilla, and I...
Nathan?
No, I'm still here. I just need to grab something real quick. This'll only take a sec.
I understand that CSAT denied any involvement.
Yeah, who knows? Maybe with good reason.
Oh?
Look, I don't know. There were shell casings found at the castle. NATO mil-spec.
Okay, so then either they were supplying the guerrillas or...
Or they were there. Maybe trying to win back the government support. Maybe...
What?
I don't know.
Hear that? Sounds like our delivery drone.
I'm on it.
Just, check the box underneath for the toolkit.
I swear to God, Andy, if it's empty again.
That was one time. Trust me, you'll be dicking around with landmines soon enough, Mac.
Good. Toolkit's here. See you later, little buddy.
What's that?
Nothing. Just, talking to myself.
Okay, little buddy. Sure thing.
Hey, how are you getting on?
Not bad, not bad. Our gear's finally arrived from dispatch. I can start deactivating mines and leftover ordnance now.
Oh, right. And do you do that by hand?
Sure do. Crawl up close, identify it, and then just, disarm the thing.
I'm sure it's more involved than that.
Yeah, well, I may have skipped the part where, it can explode. Gotcha. Well, you were one sneaky little bastard. Now, what were you hiding upstairs? There's an old photograph here. Picture of Alexis and his brother Marcos.
The civilian killed at the church. The landmine, right?
Yeah. Although honestly, it was a small miracle he'd made it that far.
Tell me more about Marcos.
Poor guy. He always seemed to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. He'd made it through the airstrike, but only to get caught up in the assault that followed right after.
There were still guerrillas in the town, even after the strike.
Mm-hmm. But Oreo Castro, it wasn't just a town. It had become a symbol of the resistance. It was important for both sides, and government forces were making their final push. Alexis had made it out, but his brother? Like I say, Marcos was always shit out of luck. The guy'd been waiting at his brother's place. Marcos had been wounded, caught in the leg by shrapnel.
I see. Do you think he went there to talk his brother into leaving, or to join the cause?
Marcos was there to talk his brother down, I think. He was only interested in survival, and that meant getting to IDAP at the church.
He remained a non-combatant then?
Protected by the Geneva Conventions, Article 51. But you gotta remember, right after the strike, it was total chaos. Time moves in one direction, memory another. Getting caught in the crossfire was a danger. He soon realized he had to keep his distance. Injured, unarmed, alone, he set off towards the church. Time moves in one direction, memory another. hour or two later, the government sent a truck to our camp. The soldiers searched the civilians for hidden weapons.
But they didn't find any.
No, and we'd already checked. It's vital our camps are weapon-free spaces, safe havens.
And Marcus, he must have made it through then.
Yeah, just about. We talked a few times after. I don't know, he seemed different.
I can imagine why. And what did he do after?
Hard to tell, but like I said, he kept looking for his brother.
Of course. And Marcus, his body, is still there in the churchyard?
Yeah. To think he survived all that just to return to the same spot less than a year later.
Nathan, you said that Alexis had been a recruit in the Altis Armed Forces.
Yeah, that's right.
So his decision to leave the army, to join the guerrillas, do you know how that came about?
It's funny, I asked Marcos the same thing once. He just looked at me and shrugged. Later on, I heard their father had been killed in the Civil War, but I don't know. Whatever his reasons, Marcos seemed to have made peace with the fact he wouldn't change his brother's mind. NATO's been busy. Even managed to clear out a few mines. Hey, Andy.
Yep.
Special type, too. Very distinctive.
Remnants of the firefight, the one you've been telling me about.
That's right.
And Alexis, he'd been there.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, I just met a guy claiming to have known him.
So, this firefight, it was... Just let me check the calendar. 8 days ago?
Yeah. Day of the NATO invasion. After the flashpoint on Stratus, there was chaos. Nobody seemed to know what to do. Finally, NATO got their act together, launched an assault on the Altis mainland.
And CSAT?
Caught off guard by the whole thing. They were there to fight guerrillas and not start World War III. So when CSAT dropped their support, government forces panicked. They were on the back foot, needed to regroup. Major Gavras was put in charge, but it was a tall order. Gavras tried to fortify their position in the northwest, but it was a risk, and he ended up cut off. The guerrillas, they didn't hesitate, stormed its position, sent the survivors running.
Okay, and if you don't mind me asking, how did you come to hear this?
Costas Dimitriou, a lieutenant, and the major's adjutant. Along with Gavras, the two of them were trying to make it to a helivac.
Unknown contact. Grid 018213. Enemy! Move 200 meters. Front.
You say they were trying to make it?
Mm-hmm. NATO took it out.
How?
Fast mover, 600 meters, west.
Enemy spotted.
Tank buster. At that point, they had air supremacy. Caught it on the hop.
Did they have another plan?
Not exactly, but they decided to make a stand at the church.
Move 200 meters. Front.
And the Major? What sort of a man was he? Was he respected?
Yeah, I mean, his reputation wasn't bloodied in the Civil War. Gavris was his own man, knew when to follow orders and when to adapt them.
Not the type to violate Loak, then?
Well, that's a gray area.
Helicopter, 400 meters. Bearing 315.
There's a mine here.
In the course of the firefight, the Major used a mine dispenser. You can think of it like a portable minefield.
Fast mover, 1.5 clicks. Bearing 150.
This thing throws 14 mines as much as 50 feet, spread out across a wide arc of fire in front of it.
And they're designed to maim, rather than kill.
Yeah, but don't get me wrong. They can still be lethal.
We've got an enemy. Helicopter, 400 meters. North.
The Major ordered Custis to place mines too. Alexis, alongside a bunch of guerrillas, they were approaching from the north. At the same time, a NATO squad was moving in on their position. They'd been outnumbered 10 to 1. Like it or not, these mines represented their best, maybe only way of making it out.
Track, 300 meters,
To
north.
activate the mine dispenser, they could either set a timer or trigger it remotely. They scattered the mines and sat tight, waiting for the enemy. Facing those kind of odds, it was the only thing they could do.
Contact, soldier! Contact, machine gunner!
Contact, fast! Contact, fast! Incoming frag!
Contact, medic! Contact, rifleman!
Throwing smoke!
Man! Sniper! 75 meters! Back!
What's the frag?
Medic!
The graveyard, it would have made for quite a kill zone.
We've got an
They
explosive
scattered
here.
the mines and sat tight, waiting for the enemy. Facing those kind of odds, it was the only thing they could do.
Contact, rifleman! One, Larkin! Fire at that soldier! Right flank!
Man's inhumanity. It's really something.
Contact soldier!
I guess it made sense for him to target the point of entry, choke points, you know.
Found an explosive.
They scattered the mines and sat tight, waiting for the enemy. Facing those kind of odds, it was the only thing they could do.
Contact soldier! One, Danny, attack that rifleman! Right flank! Target down!
Soldier, 75 meters, left! Rifleman, 75 meters, left! Contact, man!
One, Danny, attack that rifleman! Right up ahead! Grenade!
There was only one way into the church, so placing mines around the entrance, that would have been a pretty decent play. They scattered the mines and sat tight, waiting for the enemy. Facing those kind of odds, it was the only thing they could do.
Contact, man! One, Miller, engage that man! Right flank!
Contact, soldier!
I've got him! Contact! Machine gunner!
Contact, soldier! Contact, rifleman!